I've spent the last year putting the pieces of my life back together after I lost everything in my six-figure marketing business. Yeah, I loved that agency. And now I'm taking my decade plus of traditional marketing experience, combining it with the latest online marketing techniques and starting again from scratch. The question is, how will I do it? With the new challenges like cash flow, debt, and no team. This podcast is here to give you the answer, so join me and follow along as I apply and share marketing strategies to grow my online business using only the simplest, most uncomplicated methods. My name is Samantha Gooden, and welcome to Marketing Launch Radio. Okay, let's do it. Welcome to Marketing Launch Radio. Welcome to Marketing Launch Radio. I'm here today with Dan Cook. So Dan is like, you'll soon hear, because his voice is so phenomenal. And I'm like, Dan, did you used to do radio ads? Because in my time as in advertising, I would just be eating that voice up. I would want you on every single ad. So you're soon going to hear, because he sounds so awesome. But Dan is also brilliant when it comes to marketing and messaging. Dan has sold hundreds of thousands of dollars of insurance in his career. And I'm going to let him tell you a bit more about that. But he knows how to sell, but he also has a heart in the way that he does it. And Dan gives and gives and gives and gives. So you're in for a treat. You're in for an extra special treat today on this podcast. Welcome to you, Dan Cook. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
It is great to be here. Thank you for having me. This is really cool.
You see what I'm saying? Do you hear that voice? Oh.
Supplies are limited. Act now.
Oh my God. So Dan, tell us a little bit about your journey, because you know, I always say to you, you're like the ultimate creative director, right? You write copy, you do messaging, you do sales, but you've also been the head of sales teams and sales departments, right? So
Right.
you've been in corporate, and you've also been on your own entrepreneurial journey. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. In 2006, I was selling real estate in South Florida. And then all of a sudden, nobody was selling real estate in South Florida because the market crashed. And I had to go into something else. And I went into another licensed profession. I started selling insurance, health insurance and life insurance. And I did that for a little bit, and I had a knack for it. And I was selling it over the phone to 39 states. It wasn't just, real estate is local. You sell locally. But with insurance, I was selling on the phone. So I had to learn a new skill, which was phone sales. I had never done that before. And I actually was pretty good at it. And so within about 18 months, I was at the top of the leaderboard, and my bosses wanted to expand the company and add some call centers. And so they asked me to be a manager and to help them build the business. And so from there, I went into sales management, at first being a floor manager, eventually being a sales director, where I ran 3 call centers. They were 2 in Ohio and 1 in Colorado.
Wow.
And then, and I was just doing that. But the biggest joy that I had was training. I liked training and to sell. I like taking people who had never sold anything before in their lives and turning them into, hardcore closers. It's always nice to take someone who comes in from making $24,000 a year and give them a skill that they can use to make $70,000 a year. Completely changes their lives. And so that was fun. I enjoyed that. And I did that for 12 years. And then kind of got old, like anything else, it becomes a job. And
Yes.
The insurance business changed with Obamacare rolling around, and I went to a different company, and the bosses there, at first things were fine, and then it wasn't. And I said, you know what, I don't need to do this for anyone else. I can do this for myself. And my fiance Teresa and I entered into the online world, and we've been building out our own coaching program and helping people do ad copy and helping people do messaging and marketing and and things like that for a while now. The good thing is I get to teach, which is what I originally wanted to do with my life.
So, God, Dan, and you're so amazing at it. I think I said it in the intro, like you give and you give and you give. You are one of the most giving people that I have ever met, not just in the online space, because I feel your heart. I feel that what you come with. And I've seen you not just with me, I've seen you do it with other people where you're so willing to help others become the very best versions of themselves, that you give the very best of your ideas, and you have a ton load of really great ones to help us do that. So have you always been like this, or did you make some kind of shift in your life to be this person?
Honestly, I have not always been like this.
Mhm.
I was very I've never been an introvert. I've always been a person who's willing to speak and talk and be the life of the party or whatever. But um, I I didn't really pay too much attention to what other people needed for the most part
Mm.
until just because it never really came up. As a school teacher, I taught the kids, but it was Brooklyn, New York, so it was hard to enjoy that. Then I went into real estate, and real estate is, you're kind of out for yourself. You're selling your houses and you're making your money and that type of thing. And the
Mhm.
insurance business, I was doing that for a while and it was fine. But then I honestly credit it to meeting Teresa, my fiance. You know her, and
Oh.
she is the first person to tell you she is very empathetic. She feels what other people feel. She hears people talking about things, and she really gets to the core of things. And so I did just to really kind of, as my relationship with her grew, I started to take on some of those attributes, and I found that it was very rewarding to teach people, to give them ideas, to help people get unstuck. That's something I enjoy doing, and I really think it helps so many people start. They get the seed of an idea and they don't know what to do with it, and so I help them start growing that idea, and then it grows a little bit and they become stuck, and then it grows a little bit more and they become stuck. And people, that's why I've developed into a coach, because coaching is a continuous process. Eventually you want your student not to need you at all, but it never hurts to come back to
Mhm.
your coach and ask questions, because it's hard to maintain perspective.
Mhm.
And so being with Teresa has taught me a lot of empathy, and that empathy has allowed me to gain a lot of perspective, and that has helped a lot of people, I guess, because I just
Dude, it's
that
totally,
makes sense.
oh God, you've helped so many of us. But okay, so note to self, like I'm noting to self, and my community is for women and the men who love them. But my goodness, I want someone to talk about me the way you just spoke about Teresa. I'm just gonna have to message her. We're like, Teresa, man, oh my God, he loves you so
She's not even in the room, so
much.
that's cool.
Okay, so you've become more empathic, and that has helped us all. That has helped us all. You said this thing about getting unstuck, Dan. As entrepreneurs, it's really easy to get stuck in our heads, stuck in analysis paralysis. And I've seen you do it. You've done it even with me, where I'll share copy with you, or I'll share something with you, and you're like, Samantha, consider it from this perspective. And I consider myself the pretty okay copywriter, but your coaching style gives us perspective that we can't get by ourselves. But you also, I find, share these insights about copywriting and messaging.
Mm.
So, first off, I don't know, this is kind of a loaded question, but why do you think so many of us get stuck?
I think people get stuck when, okay, I'm a huge fan of philosophy and understanding the human brain and how it works and how we think and why we think what we think. And what I've learned is that our brains are generally working against us. We live in a world that right now might not seem this way, but we live in a world that is actually
Mhm.
pretty darn simple compared to when we became humans. Okay. Back then the whole thing was, I got to run from saber-toothed tigers. I have to find some food. I have to make sure I'm warm. I can't get sick or I'll die because there's no medicine whatsoever. And that's how old our brain is. And nowadays we don't have that. We stay in our homes and we have heat, we have air conditioning, we can go to the store and buy food, we turn a faucet and get some running water. Now, granted, these are first world things. There's a lot of people in the world who don't have this, but chances are those people are also not listening to your podcast. So I'm just, speaking to who's listening here. We have a life that we can get by pretty easily, but our brain doesn't know that. And anytime we enter into something unfamiliar, even if it's not necessarily a threat, the human brain recognizes unfamiliarity and responds in one of two ways: fight or flight. That's all it knows, because your brain has one job: keep you alive. Period. End of story. That's it. Survival. And survival means fight or flight, and give me enough calories and we're okay. And that's all your brain worries about. So anytime we move towards something unfamiliar, it could be meeting someone new, it could be going on a date, it could be trying food in another country. You get that feeling if you go to Thailand and they hold something up and they're not speaking English and you're like, oh, what is that? And you're like, I don't want to, and just looking at it, you start to feel a little squeezy. That's your brain. That's your brain saying, don't eat that because you don't know what it is and it might kill you. Go back and
stay away, stay safe.
Right. Have more pizza. That's what your brain is telling you. And that's why, your brain doesn't want you to work out. Your brain doesn't want you to stay on a diet, because your brain's like, why are we not having calories? We need to live. No. I'm going to put images of donuts in your head so that you eat. So anytime we approach something unfamiliar, our brain literally works against us because it's trying to protect us from what it perceives as a threat. And that creates a lack of clarity. And a lack of clarity is what makes someone get stuck. And so getting stuck is two things. It's either I have absolutely no idea what to do, so I'm stuck here because I don't know what to do next, or I have 27 different options of what to do next, and I don't know which one to choose, so I choose to do nothing. That is your brain protecting. And so that's why, to help people get unstuck, like you said, what I try to do is always think from the perspective of, when we're marketing, when we're putting forth an idea, when we're trying to get someone to buy something, if we believe in our product, then we believe that what we're offering someone will help them in some way. And remember, you're always talking to a person, and the person you're talking to, their brain is protecting them from something unfamiliar. So they're leaning towards no, because no is safe. And that's why you need to work the marketing in such a way that it seems familiar, which is why I talk about things like story and the hero's journey and these hardwired concepts of how we looked at stories through life. Human beings love stories. That's why we love movies. It's why we love books. It's why we cry during songs. It's the way our brains work. And so if you can twist your marketing, move your marketing in such a way that what you're selling now sounds familiar to your customer's brain, then they won't have those chemical barriers thrown up, and they'll be more likely to move forward. So it's really a psychological thing and understanding people.
Gosh, I love it. And I love it for multiple reasons, because you actually said it in one of our, it was actually one of your comments to me on some copy that I was going through with you. And you were like, you told the story of the Jedi. So for those people who don't understand so I'd love you to share that, because for those people who don't know the hero's journey and the importance of storytelling, for me, I believe storytelling is a science and an art. And there are parts of storytelling literally that we can put together, the building blocks to work for us. But these are building blocks that have been utilized in stories since time immemorial, right? Because as human beings, we have been storytellers. And you use the story of the Jedi to share how that becomes real. Can you share a little of that with us here? What's the hero's journey?
Okay. The hero's journey, we could talk for 5 hours, but the it comes originally from mythology, and there's a gentleman named Joseph Campbell who wrote a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and essentially his premise is all stories are basically the same. Okay, someone that we as readers or viewers, I love movies more than books or stuff, so I talk in terms of movies. But we as viewers, we watch a movie, we're given someone that we identify with, someone who could be us in a given situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we find out that their life is going a certain way, and there are things about it that are good and things about it that are bad, and like anyone else. And there are several things that they could improve and make them a better person, but ultimately they're all asking the same question: am I good enough? Do I have what it takes? Okay, and that's pretty much all of us. And that's why we get stuck in our marketing or our sales. Is can I write good enough copy for this? Why would people buy from me? Why are people going to listen to me as a coach? Why? All of this is self-doubt. And so there's always a character with some level of self-doubt. And then something happens. And whatever it is that happens requires them to step out of their comfort zone. Do you have a favorite movie?
I do. The Avengers series, totally.
Okay.
Everything, all things Avengers.
Okay. So you love your superheroes. Do
I
you have
do.
a favorite superhero?
Woo! All right. For the moment, we're going to talk about Tony Stark, who actually is Iron Man. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay. Iron Man, Tony Stark, no problem. So in the first movie, he is a war profiteer. He sells weapons, and he does all these things, and he's very arrogant, and he's very rich, and he's a ladies' man, and he's a playboy, and he doesn't take anything seriously. And then something happens that takes him out of his comfort zone. He is kidnapped, and he is forced to build a weapon that will be used against his own country. And now he starts to question himself. Okay. And in these stories, there's always a guide, there's always a mentor. And that mentor, in the case of Iron Man, was the other scientist in the
Yes.
cave who was helping him build the new suit of armor secretly. Okay.
Yes.
And then he escapes and he goes back to America. He gets
Yeah.
back home, but he's not the same person. Okay.
Yeah.
He sees that something needs to change. But the whole time, what's his whole problem? I'm not my father. I'm not
Yeah.
as smart as my father. I
Yeah.
don't ever want to be my father. And he's always got that question. And this is the same story that we all live through our lives. Okay. And he eventually finds out that, oh, there's this element, and, it's obviously it's superheroes, so things don't happen in real life, but he solves the problem. He solves his external, everyone has an external problem, an internal problem, and a philosophical problem. And his Tony Stark's external problem was, I need to stop, the use of my new energy system for weapons. I don't want to do that anymore. That's my external problem. His internal problem is, will I ever be as respected as my father? Will I ever be what my father believed I should be? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the philosophical problem is, can I be a successful person, and can I be super rich and be a good person?
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible?
Mm-hmm.
Because good rich people can be good too. Can I be super rich and be good at the same time? That's the philosophical problem. Well, your customers are asking that same question. Okay, your customers are women who want to be in business. Okay, they have an external problem. I need to make a little bit more money. I need to know how to build my business. I need to know how to market my product. Whatever their external problem is, their internal problem: am I good enough to do this? Do I have what it takes to make the progress in my business? I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough about marketing. I don't know enough about sales, so I'm just not going to do anything. Okay, so that's their internal problem. And their philosophical problem can be another thing, and that's usually a should problem or ought to problem. Their philosophical: I should be able to make money too. There's nothing that says that I, as a housewife, can't make money too. I should be able to have value in myself that doesn't come from my marriage or from my parents or from my children. I'm not just a mom. I'm not just a wife. I'm not just a daughter. I should be able to be a business person. It's a philosophical problem. And you are, through your coaching and your teaching, you will teach them to solve all of those problems. Okay. So the Jedi example was in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Luke Skywalker in episode 4, A New Hope. And if you're a geek, you know that that's the first movie released, but the fourth story. Anyway, so Luke Skywalker, at the end, he's flying his X-Wing through the trench on the Death Star,
Mm-hmm.
and he needs to destroy the Death Star. Okay, well, that's the external problem. Can we destroy the Death Star so planets don't get blown up and
Mm-hmm.
people die?
Mm-hmm.
He has an internal problem. Will I be as good as my father? Because remember, at this point, he still thinks his father was a great Jedi. He doesn't know he's Darth Vader yet.
Yeah.
So will I be as good as my father? Can I do what he did? Can I use the Force successfully? That's his internal problem.
Mm-hmm.
And his philosophical problem is good versus evil. If I don't succeed, evil wins, and evil can't win.
Yes.
And then the great thing about that movie is at the very end, he presses the button. He turns off his targeting computer and use the Force, Luke. He uses the Force, okay? He presses that button and he fires his photon torpedoes, and they enter into the Death Star and they blow up the Death Star. By pressing that one button, he solved the Death Star problem, his external problem. He solved the, can I use the Force as well as my father? He solved his internal problem. Yes, I used the Force to fire the torpedo. And the third, the philosophical problem, will good win over evil? Yes, with that one press of a button, he solved all three of those problems at the end of the movie. That is a very, very tight story.
Wow.
And if you create a sales funnel that offers people a solution to their external, internal, and philosophical problems, and just by clicking that buy now button, they solve all three of those, you will make a lot of sales, because that's what we want to do. That's who we are hardwired to be.
Wow. Okay, Dan. Wow. I mean, that is the art and the science of storytelling. And the way that you, even just the way that you broke down down Tony Stark, I had never thought about it like that. His internal challenge of, and I don't want to geek out on that, because while you were talking, and I love superheroes, right? So my favorite movie is actually The Matrix. And when I think about the story of Neo and the way that Morpheus helped Neo through this, he was the guy that took him to the Oracle, etc. I just, like, as you're talking, I'm like, oh my God, I can see this in all of my superhero movies, all of them.
Same story. Neo's name is Neo because it's Neo, the same letters in the word one. He's the one. Right. So his external problem, will we defeat the Matrix?
Yes.
Right. His internal problem, am I the one? Who knows? Is he the one? He doesn't
even believe it. I know. Right? Oh my God.
And then the philosophical problem, again, good versus evil. Can good survive? Because remember what Trinity says.
Yes.
She says, when you come up against an agent, run.
Yes,
just run. Okay. Well,
you can't stand up against an agent.
Right.
But
you can't. And then, are you saying that I'll be able to dodge bullets? I'm saying that when you're ready, you won't have to. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so geeking out right now because I know the line of this movie so well. But yes. Staying focused. Yes.
But that's the thing. All of those problems are solved when he starts to believe, right? And that's what they said. Is he okay? He comes back to life. He breathes again because he believes, and he now sees the Matrix in himself. It solves all the problems.
Dan, this thing about each. So what I recognize is true in the hero's journey and the Epiphany Bridge story, and ultimately this is the kind of journey that we're told to take people through with the perfect webinar script, right? And all of these things, if you're not aware of what they are, these are storytelling approaches that they all come through Expert Secrets and the .com Secrets book, and I'll make sure that links for those are shared for the story notes, for the show notes for here. But I noticed that each hero in order for them to become the hero, it feels as if they have to die to themselves.
Absolutely 100% correct.
Okay. So as entrepreneurs, it feels as if we're
Very,
all
very, I'm sorry, it's very astute that you picked that up. There is something in movies called the all hope is lost moment, and there's another moment in all movie. When I say all movie scripts, I mean all six movies that have made money.
yeah.
Okay. There's something called the whiff of death. There is always a death. Even in Disney movies, there is always the whiff of death. There's always something where you think someone has died or something has happened. Like in the movie Cars,
Yes.
okay, there's always the whiff of death. When at the very end of the movie, when the king, the blue car, rolls over and you're like, oh my God, something died. And he stops right before the
Finish line.
the finish line.
Yeah.
That is the death of his dream.
Mm.
Okay. That right there represents the death of his dream, wrapped up in the possible death of the blue car. And he goes back to save that guy
Yes.
because he reminds him of his mentor, his guide, that guy who said turn right to go left. Okay, as always a guide, and there's always that
Oh
whiff
my
of death. He
God.
turns back, he gives up on his dream. What's his external problem? Will I win the Piston Cup?
Mm-hmm.
His internal problem, am I good enough? Do I have what it takes? He learns throughout the movie,
Mm.
yes, you have what it takes, but what you're going to do is more important than the Piston Cup.
Yeah.
And then the philosophical problem is, should winning be all that matters?
Yeah.
The answer is
Yeah.
no, because he
No.
helps the king across the road. He says, what are you doing, little guy? You just lost the Piston Cup. And he says, well, an old car told me once, it's just an empty cup.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Wow.
be an empty cup.
Yeah.
That
Dan. Oh.
every story.
So
Yes, the death. You say what you were saying though, because it's
we
very
so,
important. The
but
death of
the thing,
themselves.
yeah, so we die
Mhm.
essentially, even as entrepreneurs, we are dying to ourselves. We are dying to parts of our dream. We are continually kind of in this stage of rebirth, right? So I start this podcast very openly saying I lost absolutely everything, was flat on my face, had no money, said goodbye to my last team member, had no money and no clients and no nothing. And I recognized that I needed to change the way my life was going, but I had no clue how. And it is essentially, this podcast is telling that journey, and me meeting people like you and sharing your amazing expertise with this community, saying, hey guys, there is help out there and you can move from one step to another. But I had to die to the person that I used to be. Is
Absolutely.
there a way that we can navigate this death? Because I feel like I went through my own, like, my whiff of death was real death. But I feel like I went through that grieving period for a really long time. In your experiences, you've worked with entrepreneurs, you worked with sales. How would you recommend we navigate this whiff of death?
That's a really good question. The good thing is it's rarely in sales is it an actual death. That's very rare. So that's good. And if it is an actual death, then you really don't have much problem after that. So therein lies the solution. But if it's generally going to be, except that it's the death of an idea. Okay, it's the death of a belief.
Mm.
Okay, and if the core of sales, a sale is at its very core the transfer of belief. Okay,
Mm.
I believe in something. I believe in my product, whatever that is. I believe in my Kenmore washing machine that I sell. I believe in the cell phone that I sell. I believe in my religion that I'm trying to convince you to become part of. I
Mhm.
believe in something, and I need to get you to believe that. If you believe what I believe, then you will buy my product.
Mhm.
Because so it's a transfer of belief.
Mhm.
Okay. Another word for belief is trust. It's a transfer of trust. And the basic idea of trust is, would this person do in a given situation, would this person do what I would do? So if you're a husband and there's a wife and you have children, I trust my wife. I don't have a wife, but I have kids. I trust Teresa to take care of my children while I go do something else for a couple of hours, because I firmly believe that if there was trouble, she would do what I would do to take care of that, to take care of what it is. Okay. On the other hand, I don't sleep in a car when my sister is driving, because I don't trust her to drive as well as I would. Right. So I'm like, look at that. Look at that. What are you looking at? Where are you going? Okay. Because I don't trust. So trust and belief are very important in sales, and you need to transfer that belief. And so to avoid, what you need to understand is the whiff of death, the transformation that is required as an entrepreneur is the death of a belief in myself or in my product. And the epiphany bridge that you mentioned, when you're selling whatever your product is. I mean, can you give me an example of what a woman in your course might be trying to offer?
Yes. Cool. So really great. I'm going to share something, actually, a client who I just spoke to. So she wants to work with women who are abused. She's a coach, but she's now going in at the entry level. So she wants to help them move from a place of dissonance. So they're going through the challenge of who are they? What's their identity without this person who is abusing them? And usually, you may know this, but women who are abused usually return to their abusers because they're so tied. If we're talking about it from the perspective of ideas, they're so tied to the old idea of who they were, right?
Well, let's touch back to what I said 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Your brain runs from the unfamiliar.
Yeah.
They're familiar with the abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Their own brain is sending them back there because despite the dangers, the brain is more afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons it's so hard to leave an abusive relationship, because your brain fears the unknown more than it fears the known, even if the known brings it pain.
Yeah.
So that's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that.
Okay.
But okay, so she's a coach, and she's going to help other women to leave these relationships.
So it's usually the woman. Yeah, it's actually the woman that's her ideal client has already left the relationship, but she doesn't know how to cope. She's trying to create this new life for herself.
Okay. Yeah. Then there are probably, I don't want to belittle this at all, there are probably 50 different aspects of her prospective new life outside of that relationship that she needs to come to terms with. Can I support myself? Am I good enough? Am I as dumb or ugly or whatever as he made me feel? And all of these are going to be questions that this poor woman will have to deal with. What would really help your client in terms of her coaching and her business would be to, and this is, I don't envy anyone having to do this, but she should think back to the relationship she was in and all the things that she had to overcome. How did I learn to believe in myself? How did I learn to believe that I was good enough for someone else to not be abused? How did I accept that I was good enough to hold down my own job and not rely on somebody else? Go through each of those memories and try to understand how she felt when that happened. Because the epiphany bridge, as you mentioned, a lot of us talk about the epiphany. Oh, a realization. That's an epiphany. I just had a realization. Great. But we forget the bridge part. The bridge means I need to take my feeling, my realization, and tell you that story in such a way that a bridge is formed between us. And my feeling, my emotion, my belief about myself transfers to you. I need you to have the same realization, the same feeling that I had when it finally dawned on me. I can't tell you, well, I left an abusive relationship and then one day, I realized that was dumb and I felt better about myself and now I'm okay. Nobody wants to hear that story. Okay, nobody cares about that story. Everybody will say, yeah, well, it's not that simple for me. But if I tell the story and say, when I walked out the door, I didn't realize how cold it was outside because but it hit me that I left without a coat. But it was more important for me to get out than it was to be warm. And that feeling, that determination,
Mm.
that, that needs to be transferred. When you tell that story, the other woman is going to say, I know how that feels. I know how it feels to finally decide that getting out is more important than eating, more important than I'll have no money. I know that day. I know what you're talking about. That connection is the epiphany bridge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an epiphany bridge. It's an epiphany bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not a paper clip. It's a paper clip.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A paper clip is a clip made out of paper.
Yeah.
A paper clip is a clip that holds paper together. It's the emphasis. It's not an epiphany bridge. It's an epiphany bridge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that feeling, transfer that emotion. So as painful as it probably would be, I would recommend that your client go back and think and write down and get down on paper how she felt, the realization, and then the realization weeks later, how regardless of how painful that was that day, it's all working out. It's all getting better. And I would also advise not to say, and now everything's great, because I would imagine that most women coming out of those scenarios can never imagine a day when it's all going to be great.
No.
But they can probably imagine all the days when it's just getting better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would talk about it that way. Having never been an abused woman, I hope that I have not offended anyone or made this seem trite in any way. It's a very important thing.
I think what is so beautiful about what you've said here, Dan, is you have touched on authenticity. You've touched on authenticity and being truly, I want to say the word integritous, but it's not a word, right? But showing real integrity between the message, your story, and your client, where your client is. It's kind of like, I've never thought about it as a trifecta like that before.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about authenticity, but I never thought about the authenticity of you, the authenticity of where your client is, the authenticity of your story, because that's then the bridge that helps us go. We hold hands together and we go over the bridge because of that authenticity. Dan, you're awesome. And you and I could stay here for like the next gajillion hours. I want people to find you.
Okay.
Find you. Where can we find you, Dan?
The best place to find Teresa and I working hard is in our group, our Facebook group, the Online Entrepreneur Blueprint. Your step-by-step plan for financial freedom.
Hold on, no. You have to say the full thing in the advertising voice. So the full thing in the ad voice.
Find us on Facebook at the Online Entrepreneur Blueprint, your step-by-step plan to financial freedom. Operators are waiting. Call now.
I love it.
Can I give you one more thing that'll make you think?
Go for it.
Okay, so Neo is the one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Morpheus. His name is Morpheus because Morpheus was the god of dreams, and he gives him the pill and it puts him to sleep, and he enters into this what should have been sleep. He's been sleeping forever, but ironically, Morpheus wakes him up, which is not what happened in mythology. Trinity is Neo is the one, Morpheus is the guide, and she is the hope for the future because he falls in love with her. She is three things. Remember Cypher, the one who betrays them? A cipher is an unrecognizable code. It's you can't figure out what it is. All right, they are all named for different things.
Dan, this is phenomenal. You have just given me you've literally blown my mind, dude. As I said, I know the lines of Matrix, all three of them, back to back. Like I know them. But I never ever saw that. So guys, honest to goodness, Dan is awesome and he can give you perspective on things. He makes himself available inside of his group and in multiple coach roles that he's in. So please go find him. Dan, just give us the name of your group one more time.
It is called the Online Entrepreneur Blueprint, where we teach you the truth that there is no spoon.
There There is no spoon. There is no. Oh God! If they're not, if you haven't watched Matrix, you wouldn't understand. But that is very, very deep. Dan, okay, so you're stranded on a desert island. You're stranded on a desert island. You are there alone. There's no Teresa. But I want to know, what is one thing that you would need to be with you there on the desert island to be happy?
Okay, for me, it would have to be can it be a collection of my favorite movies?
Of course. What would be in the collection, though?
Okay, this is where I was not expecting to go. While I do love my sci-fi and I'm a geek, my guilty pleasure is romantic comedies.
Oh, no way. Which rom-coms are we talking about?
So I would need a copy of The Devil Wears Prada.
No way.
I would need You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle. I would need a lot of those kinds of movies.
Oh, that's so cool. I would never have guessed. But yeah, those are all cool. And it would make your time stranded on an island go faster. Just the same way that time went very fast here with you. Dan, thank you.
You are quite welcome. I love being here. Thank you very much.
Woo!
If you're listening to this, then you're probably in one of two scenarios. Either you're a woman with a great talent who's ready to launch your personal brand, but isn't quite sure how to take the next step. Or you're running your own business, you've got some marketing happening, ads going, and content. Maybe you've even got an agency, but things aren't clicking just right. And you're trying to tie all the pieces together. Well, if you want my help or just want to get an idea of what it's like to work with me, then just go to unlockyourbrandnow.com. I believe in simplifying marketing and making it a process that's very, very easy. But I'm also on a mission to help every woman that I can launch her personal brand or her business brand in 21 days or less. So go to unlockyourbrandnow.com and go check it out.